What Mercedes just did with Hamilton is insane. So we're going to be going through that and 3 other stories in today's video. So make sure to like this video. And if you want more Mercedes news content like this, make sure to subscribe to the channel by hitting that red button down below. The first story is Lewis Hamilton divorce theory shared as doubts cast on him finishing season with Mercedes as the relationship is starting to get messy. Naomi Schiff has suggested that Lewis Hamilton's impending exit from Mercedes is likely to cause both parties issues later in the season. Hamilton, 37, announced back in February that he would leave Mercedes at the end of the campaign in order to join Ferrari. The decision sent shockwaves through Formula One given the Brit had signed a multi-year deal just months beforehand. The 7-time world champion has enjoyed a fruitful partnership with Mercedes where he has raced for the last 11 seasons. But Schiff, speaking on the Sky Sports F1 podcast, believes that rocky times lie ahead. She said, "You could see that already in Monaco there was some weird body language and sort of Lewis saying that he was not going to out-qualify George Russell for the rest of the season. So I don't know if there's also a whole new layer of a psychological aspect that's coming in with essentially what is like a divorce between Lewis and the team, and it's going to happen throughout the season." After outlining some of the issues which may lie ahead for Hamilton and Mercedes, Schiff, a former F1 driver and current Sky Sports pundit, believes it's only natural that the relationship between both parties will change in the coming months. She added, "Inevitably, he's going to start being left out of important meetings. New parts George is going to be the preference for the team in terms of that, but obviously he's also ahead of him in the championship, so that's the case anyway. But all these sorts of things are going to plant a little bit of a layer of doubt, both in the team's head and Lewis's head, of what game are they playing, and Mercedes wondering, has Lewis checked out? Is he still on board? I know that there's a sentiment from Mercedes and Lewis that they want to end this relationship on a high. I think they both really feel that way. Hamilton has endured a difficult season, and amid his desire to sign off at Mercedes in style, stressed that he was determined to turn his fortunes around during an interview with CBS last month. He explained, "I think everyone in the team, they want it to be a great year. Everyone's worked so hard back at the factory, no less than ever before. For me, this whole journey has been massively emotional just because I have so much love for this team. I'm not leaving because I'm unhappy there. I'm not leaving because of relationship issues. Mercedes supported me since I was 13, so I love the brand. I love the people. They've been with me through thick and thin. So it's definitely a strange transition at the moment." Passed by George Russell, late in the Canadian GP, F1 pundit Tom Clarkson believes Lewis Hamilton's worst race claim was a message to his teammate. Mercedes recorded their best result of this season last time out in Montreal, when Russell, having started on pole position, finished on the podium with Hamilton behind him in 4th place. Despite that P4 being his best result of the campaign, Hamilton declared after the race that it was a really poor performance from myself. He added, "Some other things came into it yesterday, but mostly myself, and today, just one of the worst races that I've driven. Just lots of mistakes." It was a surprise admission, especially as Hamilton's previous best Grand Prix result was only a P6. Clarkson and Natalie Pinkham debated it in the latest F1 Nation podcast, with the latter saying, "He actually said it was one of his worst races for a very long time." Talk about self-chastisement and the blame game. Very publicly shouldering the responsibility of that. "Was it that bad of a race?" Clarkson replied, "No. But wasn't that partly because George had overtaken him? He wanted to get the message out that, George, you only overtake me when I'm having a really rubbish race," is how I read that. Pinkham felt Clarkson was reading too much into Hamilton's statement, saying, "I think you're taking too deep a dive into the psychology. Whatever he says, people will spin it, aren't they? They say one moment you blame the upgrades, then next you're blaming the team. No, he's holding his hands up. Here is a good guy, blaming himself, saying, I wasn't good enough today. I thought it was amazing to hear. This is a man that doesn't have anything to prove to anyone, and he was still prepared to own it in that moment. I feel for these drivers, she added. They can't say anything without being dissected by us. Maybe it's just a throwaway statement. If your worst race is coming forth, then things are improving at Mercedes. Perhaps most telling in Hamilton's thoughts on his race was his silence when team boss Toto Wolff came over the radio and told him. The third story is George Russell told to hold back after unnecessary mistakes admission. George Russell has been advised against making needless admissions of his own guilt in emotional post-race interviews. Mercedes driver Russell earned a podium finish at last weekend's F1 Canadian Grand Prix, although he started from pole position. He later confessed that an inability to convert pole into an unexpected win was due to driving errors. Russell said post-race, "If you told us ahead of this weekend pole position in P3, we may not have believed you. It was a tricky race, 1 millimeter wide, and you're off. For me, it was one too many mistakes at key moments." But Natalie Pinkham reacted on the F1 Nation podcast. It's very endearing when someone is critical of themselves, because the first person you need to look at in the mirror is yourself. Charles does it as well. You need to almost curate an image of yourself that you want others to buy into. If you're the first person to publicly say, "It was my fault," then, a few months down the line, we might not remember what happened, but we might say, "Wasn't that George's fault?" We might not think that if he hadn't brought it up. Always be positive and constructive, but you've also got to own it. I loved it when Kevin Magnussen owned in Miami, saying, "I deserved those penalties." Maybe it's just part of Russell's personality. I think it's an endearing trait. He wants to carve out a really positive brand of his racing. You want everyone else to buy into it. Don't dupe us, but be confident in your assertions about how you are able to drive. Tom Clarkson replied, part of his reaction came down to the fact that he's got a really competitive car underneath him now. Pinkham added about Russell, he knows he was on pole. This was his greatest chance of winning this season. He would have been really frustrated. He maybe needs to hold a bit more back when the microphone goes straight under his nose. I shouldn't say that, because I love to get the raw, real reaction from drivers, not PR speak. The second story is Wolff explains why Mercedes has overlooked Sainz for F1 2025. Mercedes boss Toto Wolff has disclosed Carlos Sainz is no longer an option for its 2025 Formula One lineup, as he claimed the team now wants to reinvent ourselves. The German marque hasn't divulged who will replace Ferrari-bound Lewis Hamilton next season as it mulls over the candidates to partner incumbent George Russell. Sainz, who will leave Ferrari to facilitate Hamilton's impending arrival, was named on Mercedes' radar earlier this term and was viewed as a suitable short-term option. However, the Spaniard has been adamant that he is seeking to acquire a longer-term commitment from his next team, and Wolff has now ruled him out of the running. Instead, the Austrian, 52, has revealed he informed Sainz that he was not under consideration as Mercedes hedges its bets on teenage protege Andrea Kimi Antonelli. We just want to concentrate on Kimi. That is our future. Young drivers, Wolff told Sky Germany. We want to commit to that, to young drivers, and that is what we've told Carlos. Antonelli, 17, has been combining his maiden Formula 2 campaign with multiple F1 tests in previous spec Mercedes cars as he's lined up to graduate to the top flight. Regarding the choice to prioritize an unproven prospect over an established three-time race winner, Wolff suggested that Mercedes was preparing to turn a new page. The long-serving Mercedes team principal also added that he would have considered it unfair to leave Sainz in the lurch as he endeavors to resolve his own prospects. I think, first of all, Carlos deserves a top seat, he added to Sky Sports F1. He's done a fantastic job. But for us, we've embarked on a route now to say, you know what? We want to reinvent ourselves a bit going forward, and Kimi Antonelli definitely plays a part in that. We haven't taken a decision yet for next year, but we didn't want to have Carlos wait as he needs to take a decision for himself. That's just fair. He's doing a super job. Mercedes' crucial new front wing has been labeled a eureka moment, which could restore their competitiveness. The struggling team enjoyed a hugely encouraging weekend in Canada last time out, with George Russell finishing third and Lewis Hamilton fourth. Russell had claimed pole position too on the first weekend that both Mercedes drivers ran their recently upgraded front wing. F1 Nation podcast host Tom Clarkson commented, "There is no doubt that it's all about the flexi front wing.